Gotta let it breathe, as Chad would say, and get the Facebooks in here. And gotta wait for green check marks across the board. And there's one. There's two. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Dove Valley Deep Divers. I am your host for the night, Erick Trickel. As you can see there on the screen, you can follow me on Twitter at Erick Trickel. And then joining me tonight is Dylan Von Arks, who you can find on Twitter at Dylan Von Arks MHH. As I said, when we both filled in for Carl and Nick on Tuesday, unfortunately for the foreseeable future, I will not be joined with Lance Anderson because of his new job. He's unable to make it on Friday nights, but we hope that here in the not so distant future, we're able to get him back on. And he and I have some stuff in the works that can still, give him a voice here at MHH through the Huddle Up Network. But before we get into anything else, Dylan, how are you doing? And thank you for joining me.
Of course, always happy to join you, Eric. We've been kind of a regular pairing as of late, so that's pretty cool. I'm doing good, just excited for the Olympics and to watch that. Something to hold me over between that and training camp, but just happy to be talking with you on a Friday night.
Yeah, the Olympics, huge in my family. We're actually probably going to keep this a little bit short because I have my family coming over, and we're going to be watching the opening ceremony here in a little bit. Big thing for us every 2 years because we do it with the Winter Olympics as well. I love the Olympics. I love watching a lot of the sports that they have, and it's definitely something to help hold you over until we get to actual football. Training camp at preseason's nice, but we're all ready for the regular season. So I'm excited for that. But we're not here to talk about Olympics. We're here to talk about the Denver Broncos and football, and training camp is underway for them. And, well, we're going to be looking at how some key position battles are going, as well as any other news or comments that we've heard. And then before we get into that, we have JD Splash coming in with a $2 donation saying, will Luke be visiting training camp soon? That I do not know. So I would assume so. He normally does every year at a couple times, I believe, normally. But I am not sure that is something that you would need to ask either Chad or Luke himself when they're on the podcast. I don't know. I don't have an answer to that for sure. But before we get into, the bread and butter of tonight, we do have a presenting sponsor, Mint Mobile. With big wireless providers, what you see is never what you get. Somewhere between the store and your first month's bill, the price you thought you were paying magically skyrockets. With Mint Mobile, you'll never have to worry about gotchas ever again. When Mint Mobile says $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, they mean it. Say bye-bye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages.
To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/huddle. That's mintmobile.com/huddle. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/huddle.
Now, a $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. Now, before we get into the camp battles, I just got to say, did you see the big thing from the first practice that a lot of people were raving about with how good Greg Dulcich looked?
Mm-hmm. Oh, of course.
I just want to bring that up because not trying to pound the table for him. He definitely has to stay healthy, but it's a good sign for him. And we spent a little bit of time Tuesday talking about him and if it's a good thing that he's getting healthy and out there practicing, and it definitely is. But as for camp battles, I know everybody's curious about the quarterback position, so we'll start there. For me, it's still ongoing. I think there's a clear 1 and 2 with a very clear number 3 who is still fighting to make the roster, and Zach Wilson. But for me, it's still, Stidham and Nix are still there. I think eventually we'll get Nix as the winner. And from everything I've heard is that Stidham has been steady, but he hasn't been really, aggressive or pushing the ball. Still very early in practice. While Nix has been a little bit more aggressive, pushing the ball, and has been a little bit more hit and miss.
Yeah, and just being a steady backup, that's kind of been the stigma that Stidham wants to get away from, and he's really not doing that in camp. You got to take those risks. No risk it, no biscuit. So, and then Nick's obviously he's taking more chances, and some are hitting, some are missing. He's a rookie quarterback, kind of what you expect to see from Nick's at this point.
Yeah, and we have Shiloh coming in with the $2 donation saying the first comment was supposed to be a super. Well, let's pull that one up. The ET DVA duo back at it. I'm excited. Training camp is on with good early news regarding Javonte and Dulcich. I'm excited for how productive our 12 personnel could look. Yeah, that's another thing that we'll get into a little bit more later. But Javonte Williams is back at a lighter weight and is looking really good, which is good to hear. And well, he is part of a camp battle. But we'll get to running backs here after we finish up on quarterbacks, which we'll get after grabbing Phil McLaughlin here. Good evening, Eric, Dylan, and Deacon Scott. Unfortunately, no Scott with us at the moment. Maybe he'll jump in later, and he's just running late, but we don't know. Great to have some news from training camp. Makes me feel football is coming back. Hope to see Lance back. Great job filling in Dylan. Hashtag MHH for life. Hashtag Buckham. Hashtag Broncos for life. Yeah, it's great to have some of that news coming in and being able to hear about stuff that's actually going on with the team in a better setting than OTAs and minicamp. And as for hoping to see Lance back, as I said, hopefully we do get him back here on Friday nights. But he and I and Chad have been working on some stuff that we can do to get him on, which will be some recorded videos, which there is at least one up of YouTube with me and Coach Polglaze up talking about the Broncos defensive fronts. If you guys haven't checked that out, go do so now. Now, back to camp battles. Yeah, I mean, it's as you said with Jarrett Stidham, he want that steady backup tag that he has, that label, not necessarily what you want. And if you look at Sean Payton throughout his career, he has liked a little bit more aggressiveness from his starting quarterbacks, whereas that steady guy is kind of the backup. So you kind of got to think that maybe here in the next, maybe today, tomorrow, sometime soon, Sean Payton is going to go and chat with Stidham and say, hey, we need you to, step up the aggressiveness, show you can be the guy. It's great you have a command of the offense, but go out there and make plays happen and really show that you deserve the starting job. Because in that regard, the rookie quarterback is definitely beating him out, even though he's not quite making as many plays.
Yeah, he's not going to be able to coast to the starting role, just taking check downs and the safe throws. He's got to make those risky plays, and if Bo Nix is more willing to do that, which he seems he is, and I just like we've been pretty vocal, us two in particular, about we think Bo Nix is probably already the starter anyway. This is all just fanfare type stuff, but it's especially going to be that if Stidham's not taking any chances and just trying to coast that starting job. And I think I mentioned when we were talking before we went live is kind of similar to Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, and then the third quarterback, and at the one who is, in my eyes, is fighting to make the roster. He probably had, the play of the day in Zach Wilson making a completion to Josh Reynolds. But for me, it's the consistency aspect of it. From what I've gathered, he only completed a couple of passes on over 10 attempts, which that's not ideal. And from all the reports, when they talk about the good plays and the completions he's had, they've been from him holding onto the ball forever. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. It's not a good sign to be a successful quarterback in the NFL if your success comes from holding onto the ball for a long period of time. The better you are, the longer you hold onto the ball, the less likely you are to be a good, consistent quarterback. Some exceptions to the rule, but very few.
And, the stigma with Wilson for a couple of years now is the longer he's held the ball, the worse he's played in general, which is, I don't know, it's crazy to think about. And it's just, he was never going to win this job. I hate to say that for anyone who's a fan of him, but he's got good arm talent. He's got some mobility, but it's up here that's going to need a lot of work. And I've mentioned before, this is probably just a sit and reset year, similar to Sam Darnold in San Francisco. Just sit and kind of reset your brain after a rough stint with the New York Jets.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've seen, but apparently Sam Darnold has been lighting it up for Minnesota through their training camp practices. So it is possible to have that turnaround, and maybe Zach Wilson will see it. Just not this year. Wish him the best of luck. I mean, he's still a young kid in my eyes. I mean, he's older than you, but for me, he's significantly younger. But he still has that time to adapt and everything. So for now, with the quarterback battle, it's still much of the same. We're still probably going to get another week of practices of it being, them splitting the reps before we get an idea about it. Sean Payton has kind of hinted as such the other day during the opening press conference for the training camp, and then again today. So not expecting any news there. But as for running back, getting to Javonte Williams, he's lost weight, as I said, and he's looking really good out there, which is bad news for Samaje Perine, because multiple reporters have basically said that there's a one spot between the two of them for that veteran spot. And if Javonte Williams is looking good, even though Perine, had that role as a third down receiver, some ball security issues were held him back a little bit. Running the ball held him back a little bit. And if Audric Estime is looking good, which all reports have been, there's no point in keeping Samaje Perine, who will cost almost as much by himself as keeping Williams, Estime, McLaughlin, and Watson on the roster.
Yeah, and I've had my concerns about Javonte's knee, as I'm sure a lot of people have, and we'll have to see how much of his explosiveness was sapped with that injury. Obviously, second year, but you're not going to get healthier as a running back. You're going to be taking hits. You're going to be making cuts and whatnot, but I don't think that's enough to save Samaje. I think being more of a receiver than he was a running back last year, while in spots, was very helpful. Obviously, the checkdowns in the passing game, like you mentioned, with Russell Wilson. But you got to be a running back still, too. And the ball security was just awful. Like I know he fumbled, I think was it 3 times, 4 times? Somewhere
3 or 4 times, yeah.
And he's lucky he got on a few of them, but he did lose a few as well. So I just don't see him making this roster, especially you got a young Blake Watson coming in here as well, in addition to Audric Estime, and then Jaleel, who's been looking pretty good out there in practice as well.
Yeah, and I think when you look at the other running backs on this, you kind of have your Sean Payton pecking order, I guess, for the running backs. And while I go and find something on that with Javonte Williams, he lost 11 pounds in 6 weeks to get ready for a camp and everything. So it is great for him that he's looking good again with the knee. And I wonder if this will help with the knee a little bit with losing weight. Because I know from, the past few months of me working on losing weight, my knees feel I don't want to say they feel perfect. I've had serious issues with my knees for years, but they feel so much better than they did even a year ago when I was, approaching my heaviest weight. So with Javonte Williams, I think some of that little bit at extra weight can help with it. But then going to the, the market share at running back here, you have Javonte Williams taking that primary back who's going to be taking about 50% of the targets or touches, however way you want to look at it. Samaje Perine is probably going to be your small, low touch, game changer type. I mean, when you look at what Peyton did with Darren Sproles and some of these other smaller explosive backs, I'm seeing something like that where they typically averaged, anywhere from 8 to 15 touches a game. And then Audric Estime is going to be that short yardage, grind it, get it guy. And then Watson, get the scraps. And when you look at it that way, where does Perine fit in? Because none of those guys, I mean, you can't throw in a fifth running back in there and still have it make sense. Where would Perine come in and step in? Only thing he brings better than the other guys is receiving ability, known receiving ability, I should say. But if one of these other guys steps up, especially steps up there, then the need for Perine drops significantly, and it all will come down, in my eyes, cost. The cost of Perine just doesn't make sense to keep him.
No, not at all. And he's likely going to be on another roster come this next year. Does he? Maybe he has some trade value, but it would probably be very minuscule. And if not, you cut bait, and he's on someone else's squad.
Yeah, that the trade aspect of it would be interesting to see. I'm pulling up his contract details at the moment so I can, break down the numbers, because he has a base salary of basically 28 or 2.8 million. His prorated signing bonus of $1.5 million, that would become dead cap. So a new team would be taking $3 million the salary cap for him, which does hurt that trade value. But I think what could help is if a team loses their number 1 or number 2 running back and they need somebody and they want somebody. Well, Samaje Perine's here. Maybe they'll throw like a 6th or 7th round pick Denver's way for him. I think that's the best bet for a trade.
Yeah, and you're definitely not going to get anything significant back there, but anything you could get those extra darts, even if it is 6th, 7th round pick, like you mentioned, is doesn't hurt.
Yeah,
especially for a guy you're not going to use.
Extra ammo for young rookie contracts for a team that has lacked them over the last few years. I'll take it. Being able to save that extra $3 million in salary cap space, which you could use to get a player during the season or roll over until to next offseason with the salary cap, with the unused salary cap. Either way, that is a win for the Broncos in my eyes. Now, before getting to the other camp battles that are going on, there's center position, linebacker, cornerback. Those are the big ones we're going to get to. We're going to step back at quarterback because Todd Ossendorf, who seemingly just joined us, said, heard that day 3, Zach Wilson had the best day. We'll step back and talk about quarterbacks. How do you rank the quarterbacks today? As I said earlier, from what I have gathered, Wilson completed 2 or 3 passes on over 10 attempts. So I wouldn't say he had the best day. He probably had the best play of the day, but definitely not the best day. Jarrett Stidham was probably, was steady, completing short passes, taking what the defense was giving him, dinking and dunking it, if you will. Whereas Bo Nix was a mixed bag, but he was being aggressive and pushing the ball.
Yeah, Zach Wilson, like you mentioned, he had the play of the day, and whatever that means for early training camp practices. I believe it was a cross-body throw to Josh Reynolds. But then you're also seeing, he's missing guys are wide open, or I don't even know who that ball was going to. And you're seeing more of that. But obviously the big pop plays, the wild plays, that's what's going to get pushed to the narrative of, it's a real competition and Zach has a dog in this fight, when really not the case.
Yeah, and if I remember right, the pecking order for today was Zach Wilson was with the 1s, Jarrett Stidham with the 2s, and Bo Nix with the 3s. They've been keeping that rotation going, as Sean Payton said Tuesday during his press conference. And that's pretty much the rotation, and they'll keep that rotation going until they have a starter. Now, going to the center position, which is good because William wants to hear about the centers. From what I've gathered today, granted it wasn't perfect from him, and Todd mentions that he got beat by Zach Allen, but from what's been going out and from multiple reports on or comments I've seen on Twitter, Wattenberg has a clear leg up on the rest for the starting center job. And that today, even with a couple bad plays, he just has more command at the line. Similar things that you hear with the quarterback, being able to make the calls out, keep getting guys in place, making calls at the line on defense, things like that. He's just doing a much better job, has a better handle on it than the other 2 centers do. Yeah,
and that's might be a surprise to some, because Forsythe has been what many believe to be the front runner, myself included. I thought he had the best leg up, at least going into camp, but obviously a few days in, that's not been the case. Wattenberg has shown up. It's going to be between Forsythe and Wattenberg. I think Mustafa is kind of just a camp body. I don't expect him to stick around, but interesting development for sure. And whoever ends up under center, we need someone reliable there, and hopefully Wattenberg can be the guy.
And the thing too is with center, with any offensive line, and I hammered this last year about offensive tackle, I've hammered it before about guard, doesn't matter on the offensive line, any unpadded practice, just take with a grain of salt with how they do in practice, because they are very limited in the contact they can give, just with defensive linemen being limited in contact that they can give. So I'm still giving the edge to him because of the non-contact aspect of it, of making the needed calls of the line, pointing out things that bring the intelligence aspect of it that you need at the center position. That has been where people have been really hounding that Wattenberg is the guy there. Todd asking about swing tackle. I haven't heard anything about the tackles today. But again, offensive line, very hard. Backup swing tackles, You're not really going to hear a lot about him on the mental side of it because there's not a lot mentally they have to do in the practices right now. So probably his best bet is probably going to be Alex Palczewski, but it's definitely there's definitely a battle going on because they brought in Matt Pert, Quinn Bailey. They might look at there, though. It sounds like they prefer my guard. They have options, just maybe not the best of options.
Yeah, definitely. It is hard to evaluate right now. Like maybe it's probably better you don't hear anything right now because if you do, probably bad. They're either going to be outstanding, they're really making strides, or they're going to be bad. Otherwise, I think the main focus is going to be on Bowles or McGlinchey.
Yeah. And Phil coming in. Did they have pads on today? No, I believe their first padded practice will be on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
I think is what I saw today. And William is Crum a tackle as well. He is, but again, tackles you're not going to hear a lot about. And Todd coming in. Perfect segue here as we're going to switch over to the linebacker position. Anyways, with Sanders out, who is taking his place at inside linebacker next to Singleton? Well, we don't know that Sanders was, stepping in as a starter there, first of all, because they were never clear about where his position was. They kept holding up the fact that he might be edge. They drafted Jonah Ellis, and then it was still kind of like, or they were getting ready to the draft. He got hurt, and it just still wasn't clear about where they were playing him. So we don't know where they were planning on it. From what George Payton said at the combine, edge was where he was most likely going to end up, but we don't know for sure. As for stepping in to replace Josie Jewell, which is not as easy of a task as many Broncos fans think. Josie Jewell, not great by any means, but very underrated by Broncos fans for multiple years. Granted, injuries were an issue with him. It's between Jonas Griffith and Cody Barton. And from what I've heard, and linebacker is another one of those positions where you kind of got to take with a grain of salt and really focus on what they're doing in coverage more so than against the run because of the limitations with physical contact. But from what I've heard is Jonas Griffith seems to have a slight edge there over Cody Barton, but still way too early to get any kind of indication about who the favorite is.
Yeah, and personally, I'm a big Jonas Griffith guy. I hope he gets that nod because before his injuries, he was looking pretty good in coverage and obviously a plus on special teams. But I think we'd rather have him in that starting role because Cody Barton is yikes, not that great.
Yeah, and anytime we talk about Jonas Griffith, almost I always bring up the story. But in that talking about his coverage, he showed off that coverage skills in that 2022 season, Sunday Night Football against the San Francisco 49ers, where he read Jimmy Garoppolo and made the play to go get an interception, which led to his brother nailing me into the back, jumping in excitement, and almost pushing me out onto the field because he came jumping down the stairs and everything. But I've always had a soft spot for Jonas Griffith. When he saw the field to end the 2021 season, I really liked what we saw out of him and definitely thought he could take a step forward. He showed signs of it in 2022, though it wasn't always great. I think he can still be a quality starting linebacker in the NFL. He's just got to stay healthy out there on the field. Dude, Dad asking if we can start over. I just got here. No, but you'll be able to watch the VOD, and we are almost up for the night because, again, I do have family coming over, and we're going to be watching the opening ceremonies, the replay of it for the Olympic Games. But, yeah, so Jonas Griffith, he's the guy I want there. I mean, and after spending too much time watching Cody Barton this offseason, I don't want to watch him anymore. I really don't. They call him, he had a nickname of backside because his backside was always to the quarterback when in coverage. So I'd rather not just go that way. Todd Ossendorf asking about edges. Honestly, I haven't seen much about the edges. Again, limitation in contact. Have you seen anything about the edge room so far, and Ellis specifically?
Not about Ellis, not about any other guys, and nothing significant either way. That just they're rotating in and out, doing their drills and all that, all the boring, running around trash cans and whatnot.
Yeah, it's always tough. And then Phil McLaughlin, is there a possibility we pick up a center after camp? I think it might happen, roster cut downs depending on how they look. But I don't really think it does. And I do have to say that Tuesday night and for previous weeks, I was talking about Connor Williams and just holding myself accountable here for being wrong. With the injury concern, a lot of people were fearful that he would miss the season. He hasn't signed anywhere, but he did get cleared. He did pass a physical for Seattle, and he does have a few teams talking to him, which is good news for him that the injury, he maybe had another surgery or, just managed things started to heal right or something. But it's been a complete change about what was going around with Connor Williams, and he seems to be on the track to go this season. And hey, maybe Denver's one of the teams that's talking to him along with Seattle, but he passed the physical in Seattle, which is a good sign for him, especially if you want Connor Williams to join the team.
Yeah, 100%. You want to beef up that depth on the offensive line as well, especially at center, because Mustipher's not going to cut it. So if they could make a run at Connor Williams, that'd be great. Other than him, there's a reason we have the guys on the roster that we do. And, we missed it either through free agency or through the draft. They didn't grab anyone. So kind of where we're at right now.
Yeah. And then Erick Flynn coming in with some stars. I always forget if it stars on Facebook. Thank you, Eric. We appreciate that. Now the last battle to get to it before we get to Todd, once again, you seem to know, this order that we're going in, or maybe you just figured it out. It's kind of obvious here. Who's playing opposite PS2 and who is in the slot? Jaquan McMillan is the slot corner. That there was never any doubt about that. They've been very clear. He is the starting slot corner. Opposite Patrick Surtain, they have a rotation going on with 3 players going, just like at quarterback. You have Riley Moss, Levi Wallace, who was with the ones today, and Damari Mathis all competing for it. And everything that I've heard, even through OTAs and minicamp, it's Riley Moss's job to lose.
Yeah, and I'm excited to get Riley out on the field because, I don't know if it's just a VJ thing or what, but rookie defenders didn't get much playing time last year. And obviously there were a few injuries, but even when they were healthy and cleared, they weren't getting out there. And you spend a 3rd-round pick to trade up and then your other 3rd-round pick to select him. That's pretty big investment, and they need some return on that for sure. And I think Riley can step into that cornerback 2 role and thrive.
Yeah, we actually were talking about this beforehand, and I did the math to figure it out. With the 4th and 3rd round pick they used to move up to get him, and with the 3rd round pick they used to select him, they used the investment of the 46th overall pick on Riley Moss, and we barely saw him on the field last year. We got to see him on the field this year. We can't keep wasting years of Patrick Surtain with who's his partner going to be. You got to figure that out because that can help take a lot of pressure off Patrick Surtain. And if they can find somebody good enough there, it gives more opportunities to Patrick Surtain as quarterbacks may be forced to look his way a little bit more often.
100%. And, PS2 talked today about wanting to get more interceptions. And, if the ball's coming his way, either he's getting it or no one's getting it. And obviously, until you find that guy to play across from him, he's not going to get many balls thrown his way. So whoever plays at CB2 this year is going to get a higher volume of passes thrown on him.
Yeah, Surtain just needs to hope that he doesn't end up going against Chosen Anderson.
Oh, jeez, don't remind me.
Just a little of a joke there.
And
then some other, another battle going on is at safety, and unfortunately, we have had 2 bits of bad news about the safety position this week. Caden Stearns, it was seeming that he'd be good to go a little bit into camp, but now it's looking like he may miss all of camp, may miss the preseason, and may stay on the PUP list into the regular season. When Sean Payton was asked about it yesterday or the day before, I can't remember exactly when it was, his response is that there is a road ahead of him before getting back, which suggests that it's going to be a while before we get him out there. And then Brandon Jones messed up his hamstring today, which is, a cause for concern with hamstrings. Hamstrings are that injury that it seems like it's so minor, but 1 or 2 weeks with a hamstring injury easily turns into 6 to 8 weeks with the hamstring injury. So there is a competition there now for the number 2 spot. PJ Locke right now is the number 1 guy with Stearns and Jones hurt, and it's not close. Who can step up? JL Skinner, I guess, has had some pretty promising plays here. And then Devin Key, he was a guy who looked pretty good last year. And then they have a bunch of other safeties that are, not overly, don't have a whole lot of experience and just need to step up and show something.
Yeah, definitely. It's becoming who's healthy, not who's better at this point in the safety room. And that's tough to see, especially I like the Brandon Jones signing. He hasn't had like a super extended role as a starter. He's got a decent amount of starts under his belt, but more better as that rotational guy. But I wanted to see him this season, especially opposite Locke, who showed huge strides last year, and I wanted to see that continue development. But like you mentioned, Stearns can't seem to stay healthy, and he's just not making. Obviously, it's not his fault, but he's not making a good case for himself to start in any capacity.
The best ability is availability. I mean, it's a saying for a reason when we come to sports. And Todd Asendorf hamstring is what took out Dulcich. For the most part, yes. People forget that to end last season, he suffered a foot injury as he was working back and was close to seeing the field from the hamstring injury before he hurt his foot, which is what sidelined him for OTAs and minicamp was the foot injury. So yeah, that's probably going to do it for us. As I said, it was going to be a shorter show. And for the foreseeable future, Fridays might be a little bit on the shorter end. We'll see. It's also up to you guys as well. But it's been good chatting with you, Dylan. It's always good, to sit there and talk Broncos football and talk Broncos football with you, especially now that football is actually underway.
Yeah, no more hypotheticals, no more BS like that. Actually talking Broncos football, even if it is just training camp and practices, that we eat that stuff up over here. So always happy to join you, Eric.
Yeah, well, that's going to do it for us. You guys can find us on Twitter at Erick Trickel, ERICK, and then at Dylan Von Arks, MHH. You can follow the MHH pod on Twitter as well as the mothership account Mile High Huddle. You can get access to all of our shows and all of our written content and any other kind of content that we put out there, whether they be YouTube videos or other stuff. You can follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. You can follow us on Instagram at Mile High Huddle with an underscore between mile and high, and then high and huddle. And of course, if you guys are able to and can financially do so, mhhmerch.com, where you guys can get some swag. You guys can get hats like this. I would show the shirt, even though it's the Dove Valley Deep Divers orange shirt color. It isn't my Dove Valley Deep Diver shirt, like I thought it was. Make sure you go to Apple Podcasts and leave a 5-star review as a chance to win some swag each month. Swag is such a weird word to me. I never have understood it personally. But if you're unable to do any of the financial stuff to help to support us, we understand times are tough and so much is going on in the world. But there is something that you can still do that only takes only costs some time, matter of seconds. You can subscribe, you can like, and you can share. These are simple things that you guys can do to help, spread the show, make us bigger, and help the algorithm and the bots and everything like that, and all that stuff get figured out and point people in our direction. With that said, any last words?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the people who came in and showed a little extra love to us tonight. So we have Jetty Splash coming in, Shiloh Heesh, our boy Phil McLaughlin, as always, and Eric Flynn. Thank you guys so much. We really appreciate it. And everyone else in the chat who came in to listen to us yap for a little while.
Yeah, I mean, the super chats and the stars, that is a great way to help us financially and help us keep the lights on and be able to keep doing this. But even just tuning in, chatting with us, we appreciate that as well. We appreciate all of you guys for tuning in. We hope you guys have a wonderful night, wonderful weekend. Stay safe. If you guys are into the Olympics, enjoy the Olympics. It's always a great time of year, or the year we have them, I guess, every 2 years. For me and my family, if it is for you, I hope you guys enjoy them as well. Again, thank you all for tuning in. Have a wonderful night. Have a wonderful weekend. and stay safe.